Here's the question. How do you make the impossible possible? Simple. Remove the I am, the ego. Now, how do you step into that newfound possibility? With a series of small intentional steps. Never forget, the greatest among us started from humble beginnings. But to truly unlock your potential, realize you're here for something greater. If you're yearning for more than just a good life, let's take that small step together to reach greatness. Welcome to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, where we're talking to those who have gone from mediocrity to motivated, overlooked to overachieving, forgettable to unforgettable. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, everybody. We are back. This is the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, and good morning. I believe we're launching on Monday morning at 8 a.m. roughly. Good Monday morning. Hopefully this sets you up for a good week. This one is going to relate mostly to those who are founders of businesses, nonprofits, organizations of all types. And I wish that I could have found and had tracked where I found this, but I found this recently and I resonated with it so much that I just needed to share it with you all. And I will actually probably copy this link and send it to bunches of people just because I think some people will really, really relate with this. Unfortunately, for those of you who are listening who aren't business owners or closely associated to a business owner, you may not resonate too much with it, but just go with it from the standpoint of a piece of understanding for how many of them feel. It's called I Am a Founder. And it's kind of a poem, but it's more a series of statements that I found online recently. And I don't know who to attribute it to, but I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to break down some of the things that are in it. And then I'm going to read it again at the end as a total package. Here it is. I want to be liked, admired, and appreciated more than I care about results. So I avoid conflict at all costs. The irony of that is that I not only am loathed, disliked, underappreciated by my people, but I feel contempt for myself too. Additionally, I'm running around in a perpetual state of anxiety. So it's difficult to maintain close relationships and truly have gratitude for my life circumstances, which despite my faults continues to improve. Call me a coward or call me an entrepreneur. I am a founder. Let me break this down. So I relate with this completely and immensely, and not so much today, although I still have the same feelings, old feelings and old habits mentally and psychologically and emotionally. They die hard. So it says, I want to be liked, admired, and appreciated more than I care about results. And that is 100% true for me. I care about the culture. I care about character. I care about integrity more than I care about dollars. Let me read part of it again. I want to be liked, admired, and appreciated more than I care about results. So I avoid conflict at all costs. So I love being admired. Admired for taking the step to become an entrepreneur. And I wrote in a book recently called The Joyful Entrepreneur. And please look it up on Amazon. It's there and got a lot of great reviews, and it launched recently, last Tuesday in paperback. And it'll say Tamara Andrus on it. And I'm one of the authors of many in there. There's 17 or 18 authors, and I'm one of them. Wrote a chapter. What I wrote in that is that I didn't even know the word entrepreneur. I didn't know it existed when I started almost 42 years ago, 41 and a half years ago. It happened. I started 2 years after I got 2 months, after I got married, and just to do better than I was doing in my minimum wage job. I knew I could do better, and I did. I really did. When you think about the dollars I made comparatively, I did great. But one of the things I did was I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be admired and appreciated more than I cared about results. That's part of my nature. That's part of many entrepreneurs' natures, because when you start a business, then you get to be around the people that work with you, your vendors, you get to be around your customers, and you get new people every day, almost every day. Not in every business, of course, but certainly in the contracting business, I have new customers almost every day. And I wanted to be liked and admired and appreciated, and didn't really care about the results. I just needed to supply for my family, which I, over the years, have done a good job of. There's been a lot of down times, but more good times. The feast or famine, there's been some famines. There's no doubt about that. But the feasts were more often, and some of them were a lot longer. It was very good. And then this thing says, so I avoid conflict at all costs. One of the things that I've given to my kids, my boys in particular, over the years, and others, is one of the mistakes I made, the regrets I had in regards to my marriage, is that I didn't take a risk often with my wife and give her the actual respect and honor of having difficult conversations. I just wanted peace. I just avoided conflict because I wanted peace in the family, peace in the house. And I knew that like she's a very powerful individual and she'll have opinions, and I don't necessarily want to disagree with them. And that was a mistake I made that I should not have made. I should have been willing to disagree and allow her to disagree with me, but I avoided conflict in hopes that she will like me, admire me, and appreciate me. And that was a mistake that we shouldn't make in our marriages or any relationship that we have. But that being said, you've got to consider that when you're leading something, and we are all leading something, family, ourselves, a couple of people, an entire organization, hundreds of people, it doesn't matter. We're leading something that we need to project out 10 years and 20 years and say, what if I get a little lazy on this one, or I don't push into this thing right now? What's the result of that? That's a great question to ask, and I really encourage you to ask it. I'll go back to reading this. The irony of that I avoided conflicts, is that I am loathed, which means to some degree hated, a little bit disdained. Like, people respected me because I did things, but most didn't have really a respect for me because it was a struggle and it was obvious. And I didn't or couldn't hide the struggle from typical population out there. So I felt loathed, disliked, underappreciated, especially by the people around me that worked with me in the business. Now, they knew I was loyal to them. They knew that I was going to give to them before I got anything. If there was profit to be made, I got that last, which of course philosophically is probably the wrong way to do it. But I had my my ideals a little bit off back then. And what I wanted to be, of course, was respected. But because I didn't care enough about results in a positive, constructive way, I ended up being disliked and underappreciated. And that, not always, but often, for those who are there to do work and get a paycheck and take care of their families. And that's not to say they're bad for wanting to do that, but those that were there to do their jobs, I was not appreciated as deeply as those who liked relationships, which I like, and was able to show loyalty to those people, no problem. But those who were just there to do their jobs, they didn't really appreciate how relational I was at times because I didn't care enough about results. The results innately inside of us, we understand that when we get results that are positive and productive, that everybody equates that in a business at your job with dollars and security. And I didn't always give them that security. So there's a downside there. And then this goes on to say, but I feel contempt for myself too. So I always felt guilt. Now let's talk a minute about dad guilt. And then we'll talk about businessman guilt or contractor guilt, because that's the one I can relate with the most. So dad guilt, we've all heard about mom guilt. They want it all. They want to have a job. They want to, or they're forced to, maybe, to have two incomes. So they're forced to have a job. They're forced to have a job so they can give everything they want to their kids, the things they didn't have. And they feel guilty if they can't. So, but they still want to do sports, and they still want to be the awesome mom and all that. Okay, go down the list of what mom guilt is about. But what many women don't understand is that men sit around with this incredible amount of guilt that we work 50 and 60 hours a week. And if we're not, then in our society out here, there's something that says we're a little lazy, actually. We're not producing if we're not working way more than 40. For those who have jobs, good jobs, then maybe that 40 does it, but they still, many of those that 40 hour a week job people that I know do side jobs or other things. And that's probably well placed at times because of number of kids, bills they have coming or whatever, but there's actually a guilt that comes with that. And then we get guilt for not being at the sporting events and not being home and be the present father. And then we pour ourselves into the people around us, our business, our organizations, and we come home exhausted and we have nothing left to give. And we feel guilt about that. Now we're exhausted, so we can't do much about it. We literally can't do much about it. And I say can't loosely because there's been times when I've had to just buck up and just do what I needed to do or help around the house. Get up in the middle of the night with the kids, these kinds of things. And I did that hundreds of times over the years. Now that did help the guilt some, but I think I thought to myself many times, well, if I could find a way to be home at 3 or 4 every day, then the kids, maybe they wouldn't be so miserable. Maybe my wife wouldn't be so on edge. And there's guilt that comes with all of that. And then I'm gone all the time and I'm not producing enough dollars to even out the income and give my wife security, which is what I actually want to give her, is security. This affirmation that says that my being non-present is actually doing something for the family. It's getting us to the next level. It's getting us to the next place, whether we've stated it or not. And so many years, year after year, and I know that many of you, whether you have full-time jobs or you work for someone or you're an entrepreneur and do your own thing, you understand what I'm saying. Men, you understand it, that you feel guilt for not doing better. And yet maybe you feel a little stuck. I know for years I felt stuck because I intentionally chose the business I was in so that sometimes I could work shorter days and be able to be the soccer coach or the baseball coach or these other things. And I intentionally chose the business I'm in because the number of dollars per hour were enough to sustain that kind of thinking. What I didn't do that I should have done, in true confessions, is think more about my future and what that sacrifice was doing, that sacrifice of time was doing. Some of you know Ed Milet, and I heard him recently at a live event. Was able to, literally sit close to him in a room, whatever. And somebody got up and asked a question during Q&A time and said, I'm an older man and I don't have kids at home anymore, but I look back at my life and I say the business took so much of my time. I kind of feel guilty about that. And boy, Ed Milet had what I thought was a really good comment about it. Basically editorialized something that happened in his life. He, when the kids were young, he'd say, oh, I'm sorry. And he'd apologize constantly for working a lot, starting multiple businesses, basically becoming, quote, in the world, successful. And he felt guilt about that and apologized to his kids when they were both teenagers, upper teens, where they had a better understanding. Finally, he came to the conclusion that he wasn't sorry. And so he sat him down and he said that to him. You know, that those times when I said I was sorry for not being at your event or at your game and these other things that you wanted me at, or the quote present father would do no matter what. He said, I'm not sorry for those things, because what I've built in these organizations, in these companies, I've put a lot of time and effort and energy into them. What I've built here is a legacy for you and your kids and their kids, and it will perpetuate. And it had to start with somebody. And it started with me, because I started with nothing. And I have a similar story. Now, Ed Milet is rich and he has hundreds of millions of dollars and these kinds of things. And I don't have anything like that. But I came from nothing. And when I started the business I own, I started it with a pickup truck. And that is it. I borrowed the other important items that I needed to go out and do the work that I needed to do. I borrowed it, bought them as I could afford them. And that's my story about this. But I do feel contempt. I do feel a little bit of, it's probably an overstatement to say self-hate, but it's a term that's out there nowadays. I do feel guilt. And it's called, let's see, in this thing, it says I have contempt for myself. Well, you shouldn't. Don't feel guilty. If you have a good teammate, a good wife, they're taking care of the kids, you're a good team, and you do switch off, and you do get up at night, and you do those things, you're building. Remember, as long as you're pointed to legacy and leaving something for them, not just dollars, no, leaving them with good character and good values, and the dollars then follow those good, bigger, more important things, then you shouldn't feel guilt. Yes, you want to be there more, and you should plan for that, and you should time block your schedule and these kinds of things. I've been teaching some people at my business how to time block so that they do the important things, so that when they do the important things, they can then be present at the right times, sacrifice certain things, and hopefully the less important things, hopefully the more mundane things. But that gives them then the ability to go to the district tournaments and the state tournaments. And I had the privilege over the years to go to 2 national tournaments with one of my kids. And it was incredible. We also did a regional tournament. But because of my business and the flexibility there, I was able to do those things, but I sacrificed a lot to be able to. And I will say that I am glad I did that, but was also frustrated with myself at the time. Okay, let me continue reading. Additionally, to feeling contempt to myself, I am running around in a perpetual state of anxiety. I still have that to this day. Like, what did I miss? What have I not thought of? What have I forgotten? Who have I disappointed? Now, that's very entrepreneurial. Those random people that start a business that are type A and literally don't care, they're very rare people. I heard a statistic that most entrepreneurs are C+ students or lower as an average throughout their at least 12 years of school. And then possibly if they even go to college, which I went to less than a year before I started my business, C+ and less students, because we're distracted. We have these ideas in our head, and the ideas are more important than schoolwork. And I would say that's very true for me and most entrepreneurs. Though some are good students and have good memories, it's more typical to be that distracted person that daydreams and looks out the window. But today, that perpetual state of anxiety that most entrepreneurs feel is, who have I disappointed? It's part of that. And then, what have I forgotten? What did I forget to do? Did I bid that job right so that I can get the job? Did I bid it competitively enough? And did I bid it low enough to get it, number one? But number two, did I bid it high enough to actually make something on it if I do the job? That is tricky. And there's anxiety that comes with that. And that's the stuff we stay awake at night over. So it's difficult to maintain close relationships and truly have gratitude in my life circumstances. I am frustrated with my past in a couple of ways. I've already mentioned some, and there are others that I won't mention today. But one of them is that what it says here about maintain close relationships is that I've maintained a few over the years, but I've had to compartmentalize them. Okay, this is my friend that I stay low level with, and we do vacations, and we can do trips out of town and camping and talk about cars and these kinds of things, but nothing super deep or honestly really life changing important. And there's a few of my friends like that. But they're easy to be around. And so we often chose to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. But most men, most people, but men in particular, have 1 to 2 good friends, lifetime friends or good friends today. I can't actually name somebody that I would say is my best friend. Still to this day, I don't know who it would be. And then looking for mentors, I have over the years, well, let me back up and say my best friend is my wife. But in male friends, where I maintain close relationships with male friends, often I'm just too busy and I just lose touch and I just don't return calls. And I just it's not going to hurt their feelings. So I just don't call them. And that is not good. It's not good. It's not the way it should be. And yet that's the way it is for most of us. I wouldn't say all of us, because some are really good at it, but we do tend to disappoint each other. So that's the way it is for most of us. And that's one of my regrets. Although I do have a couple of mentor types where I'm mentoring a couple of people and I have mentors in my life now. One of them, two of them are very spiritual mentors. One is a legacy kind of spiritual, looking out in the future and how do you build for legacy impact for the kingdom of God. And then another one is just literally a lot of Bible and talking about scripture and talking about the things that are holding us back spiritually and emotionally, psychologically, so that we can break the bondages that are in our life. And that is a really valuable relationship too. But these are older men, but men my age or in my generation, not very many, and I never have. So that's my true confessions. And I would encourage you not to be that way. Get some friends, grab onto those friends. Probably the reason they're not in my life and we don't spend a lot of time together is because I don't reach out to them, to be honest. And many of them just stopped reaching out to me. Yeah. And some of them are like me and they just don't have time. They're tired. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I realized that I could have done a lot better over the years of maintaining close relationships. And then to have true gratitude for my life circumstances. I just in the last few years, since COVID, where I did a mental reset and looked at what do we have? What have we been given? And I look at those things and I think, oh my goodness, I have so much. I have so much granted me. Matter of fact, I'll try to make it short, but one of the stories during COVID is the prior year or two in K&L, in my business, was really good. And when COVID came, I just kind of saw it coming and the world shut down, and we met with our people, our production team. And it was only, I think it was 10 or 11 people standing in the circle, besides Keith Jr. and I. And we said, you guys put in the effort last year and we had a good year. We are not laying anybody off. We're not doing it. And we had done a little bit of quick research to find out what of programs are available out there: rent relief, car loan relief. You could, take your mortgage and pause it for a few months, these kinds of things. And we said, but as soon as we can get back to work full time, we will do it. We even manipulated and worked on how to get them full weeks on the weeks we did work, and manipulated our schedule so that they could basically, without costing us a bundle more, we were able to get them pretty good paychecks. So I was being stubborn. And I had a lot to be grateful for because we had a little bit in savings because of that prior good year. And what I was looking at is, how do I live in this situation of this place of gratitude, but in kind of a stubborn way. So when COVID happened, we said, no, we're willing to just about sink this ship to make sure that everybody has what they need. And they became super loyal to us. Most of them were already, but they came super loyal to us because we went after this thing. Then the next day, or a few hours later, we met with the sales team, and I came up with 8 things that we were going to try. And I said, for 2 weeks, we're going to try these things every day. And we went through the list and calling contacts and different things. And within about 2 weeks, we're going to find about 3 to 5 of them, probably around 3 or 4 of them that work, that work for getting people to think about getting back to life, getting back to the business, the asphalt paving business that we were in, getting them to think that direction. And it was less than a month, and we got a bunch of traction on many of those things. And the story is amazing. Ask me about it sometime. I'll tell you in person. It's a really good story about the things that happened, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that just building relationships back without talking a bunch of business really helped us with. So it says, what I just read, the difficult to maintain close relationships and truly have gratitude in my life circumstances. COVID helped me with that. Remind me that things are bad, things are hard, things are difficult. They're unsure, they're scary, they're insecure, but I have so much to be grateful for. And that mindset switched. Not that I was negative before, but it's switched on in high gear, and it's not gone away since. And the next line of this says, which despite of my faults, continue to improve. So my circumstances continue to improve. I'm an entrepreneur. I learn, I get a little bit better. I have a relationship with my wife. I learn, I get a little bit better. I take the lessons from the past that I already mentioned, and I say, okay, I take a little risk. I have harder conversations, and I do better as a husband. And then I learn the things that I did with my older kids, and I do a better job with my younger kids. And that now they're all out on their own, and they're all doing great. Literally all of them are doing great. So I take those lessons and I learn and I do better, and I practice things and try things that literally, in spite of my faults, do still continue to improve. So one of the last statement of this is, call me a coward or call me an entrepreneur. So because I feel all these things, I feel that I want to be admired, appreciated, don't really care about results, although you have to have them. But then I also know the irony is that I'm loathed and disliked and underappreciated by those around me and my employees often. And I've put them in a position to do that because I wasn't always the perfectly respectable leader that I've worked on becoming now. But all over the years, I hadn't been. And then I feel guilt and contempt for myself for many of the things that I am and what I am becoming in some ways. That's what I felt over the years. Now I'm doing better at that too, since gratitude is in full. I would say I have it in fullness now, more full at least, but I don't have near as much contempt for myself, and then I need to push back that anxiety, the insecurity, and then drive into that, the ability to not look at myself as something negative, that instead I'm positive. Instead, I bring things to the table, which I've taken risk, and I do bring things to the table. I've learned so much over 40 years of doing business that I do bring things to the table. Now I can point at you out there. Most of you have been in business or in life less time than I have, and that is perfectly fine. You're still learning, but you don't need to have contempt for yourself. You shouldn't have contempt for yourself. Now, is some of it actually well placed at times? Yeah, perhaps. But I run around in a perpetual state of anxiety. I still do that. I still wonder about the other the people in my business that are equal to me, my wife, my son. the general manager, and then some of the other employees that are key employees to me, the sales team. Am I doing good enough? Am I helping them? Am I really helping them? I will ask this a lot. Now, there's nothing wrong with asking that question and having some good critical feedback by someone else or yourself, but often it brings anxiety and I shouldn't let it. Maintaining close relationships, I need more of those. And I'm working on that at this stage of life at 60. Please, I beg you, work on them younger because you need them. Thank goodness, thank God that I have survived without a lot of close relationships. I do have a couple of close friends that, matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to go to a MLS soccer game with one of them. And we do talk every month or so, at least. We're completely different spots in the world. He's not a business owner. He comes from he was a pastor. And so we come from completely different places in the world and different lives, and yet we are good friends. We care about each other. And we've had conflict in the past and disagreed, but we're still friends and we're committed. So I appreciate people like that. And then another friend is a school teacher who I really appreciate just because he will often call and just say, just hadn't heard from you. Wanted to hear your voice and see how you are. And I appreciate that so much that he does that. So despite my faults, the circumstances continue to improve as I think as I become more wise. And that's what I need to remember and do more of is more wisdom, search scripture, search godly authors, search those mentors, ask them lots of questions and learn from them so that I can be a better representation of the Christ they serve and do it in my way, the way that I'm supposed to do it. So the last one calls me a coward or call me an entrepreneur. I don't know that anybody would call me necessarily a coward. It takes a lot of courage, and I don't call any entrepreneur a coward. I think to myself when someone starts their own business, oh, good. You're going to learn things about faith you didn't know you needed to learn. Like, where's the next dollar coming from? It brings a whole new perspective on how God supplies dollars and cents and how he provides the bread of life, the literal bread. And it gives a great perspective when we take that risk. Thank God for the good entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs in general, whether you failed or not, and whether you're in the game or not anymore, it doesn't really matter. You've learned things about faith because you've been in that zone of entrepreneurship and business ownership. Let me read the whole thing one more time to close out. I want to be liked, admired, and appreciated more than I care about results. So I avoid conflict at all costs. The irony is that not only am I loathed, disliked, and underappreciated by my people, but I feel contempt for myself too. Additionally, I am running around in a perpetual state of anxiety, so it's difficult to maintain close relationships and truly have gratitude for my life circumstances, which, despite my faults, continue to improve. Call me a coward or call me an entrepreneur. I am a founder. Picked this shirt up at a conference called Founder Conference. It's going to be on, I believe, on the weekend of November 9th in Virginia Beach, Virginia this year. Check it out if you're interested in being around a bunch of business owners. Most of them are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs with small staff. And you'll be blessed there if you go. That being said, Zig Ziglar says that you have a reason to be on this earth. And many people do. But you were designed for greatness. And I'll end with that call to action that I always end with, which is now go be great. It's your choice.